In today's video, President Trump authorized a lethal strike on cartel members. And secondly, the GOP Oversight Committee just released 32,000 pages from the DOJ related to Jeffrey Epstein. Finally, the governor of Illinois is still pushing back against President Trump as National Guard troops have been staged. And all these videos will show you what both sides are saying and then give you the bottom line.
The president is going to be on offense against drug cartels and drug trafficking in the United States. It destabilizes not just the country, but the entire Caribbean basin. These particular drugs were probably headed to Trinidad or some other country in the Caribbean, at which point they just contribute to the instability these countries are facing. So the president's been very clear that he's going to use the full power of America, the full might of the United States, to take on and eradicate these drug cartels, no matter where they're operating from and no matter how long they've been able to act with impunity. Those days are over.
Yeah, as you guys can see, here's the actual footage of the U.S. forces taking out this boat here who's transporting drugs. And this is exactly what you want from your commander-in-chief, to not just say things, but actually back it up with action. And that's what you're seeing here on the screen. So there is the strike there. Neutralize. It's over. They're not going to their destination. Drugs are in the water. It's a wrap. And this is really good news. And I would love to see more of this because honestly, Congress has always talked tough when it came to the cartels, but they've never really done anything about it. In some cases, I actually believe they're in cahoots with the cartels in some way, shape, or form, or at a minimum, they just tolerate them and allow them to continue to destroy the well-being of humans on this planet.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio confirming the operation, writing on X. As the president just announced moments ago, today the U.S. military conducted a lethal strike in the southern Caribbean against a drug vessel which had departed from Venezuela and was being operated by a designated narco-terrorist organization. My next guest was in the room for President Trump's news conference. That's Alabama Senator and gubernatorial candidate Tommy Tuberville. Senator, great to see you. You were in there. I'm curious if you know anything more. This is a fascinating announcement from President Trump about this strike that took place just within the last couple of hours.
Yeah, it happened pretty much real time where we were doing the press conference, and Pete Hegseth mentioned something about it, but it just goes to show you, I just heard your interview, protecting Chicago, protecting the people of this country. Well, that's what President Trump's doing. I mean, he's not going to allow Venezuela or any other country to run drugs in this country, knowing that we know that they're there and they're killing our kids in this country. So, you know, it all goes back to one thing. President Trump's a leader. Those people in Chicago, they're either corrupt, mentally ill, or stupid of what they're doing. And President Trump is going to take command and be a leader, and that's what we need in this country right now. But it was good to see something like that happen. Venezuela is a bad actor, and we need to take care of business when it comes to Venezuela.
You see, this is the exact type of decision from the president that he is not going to get credit for. You're only going to really see it on Fox News described that way. A decisive action. We took out someone that we would consider to be the enemy. In fact, he's already labeled these people terrorists, and these people are engaged in things that are negative for the well-being of humanity. So it's really good that he did this. Now, don't tell CNN that, because, you know, I got to show you the opposite side of this. They're questioning his legal authority to carry out this lethal strike. Take a look.
Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, called this a lethal strike. What more can you tell us?
I mean, this is a really significant escalation. I can't recall another time when the U.S. military conducted this kind of operation against a drug cartel operating in the Caribbean. They're operating in international waters, as the president has said, but still, you know, this is obviously part of the president's broadening campaign to go after these drug cartels, particularly Tren which comes from Venezuela. And according to the president, he said that, you know, early this morning on his orders, U.S. military forces conducted this kinetic strike against terrorists, he says, that were positively identified by the U.S. military. So he's suggesting that they knew who these people are, they knew they were carrying drugs to the U.S., and they took action. Now, what we don't know is exactly what kind of military asset was used to actually carry out this attack, although the president did say that 11 people on board that boat there were killed. Now, another question, of course, is just what authority was used to actually carry out this operation. The president has been saying, of course, that he has wanted to use this kind of military action and lethal strikes against cartels in the past, but it's still unclear what kind of authorization was actually provided as a legal basis to do this. And
okay, so let's just stop for a second here. maybe she's unclear on what the legal basis is for the president to be able to do something like this. Everybody knows at this point, and we've gone over this when we had to cover the, President Trump authorizing legal strikes on Iranians' nuclear facilities. The president has the ability to order strikes at any time. He does not need congressional approval because one, he's not deploying troops on ground there. Two, it's not a declaration of war. And three, if there are soldiers in danger or there is a group that is labeled a terrorist group, he has the authority to pull the trigger. I don't think this individual who was actually reporting the story on CNN, I don't think she's up to speed on what the legal authority is. So what she's doing is truly projecting, and I'll prove it to you because even fake Tapper reminds her that it's possible the president has authority here. Take a look.
Marco Rubio, who's the national security advisor, dual hat as the Secretary of State, he said, look, the White House counsel's office, lawyers have looked into all of this, not going to get ahead of them, but suffice to say that that work was done behind the scenes. But we should also note the U.S. military right now has a ton of assets around Venezuela. More than 4,000 Marines and sailors are based there right now. So they're clearly building up a very robust military presence to do exactly this.
And it was February of this year that Secretary of State Rubio designated Tren de Aragua as a foreign terrorist organization. So, I mean, presumably the authority that the president has to go after terrorist groups have been what he was invoking?
The question that legal experts have is that more of a sanction authority in order to limit their movements and limit their ability to do business? Does that actually provide the legal justification to take military action against them? That is still up for debate.
Okay, so we move to our second story, which is also breaking news of today. GOP Oversight Committee has just released all the subpoenaed documents from the DOJ related to Jeffrey Epstein. Bottom line up front is what? Number one, it's 30,000 pages. Number two, it's heavily redacted. And number three, it's information that everybody already knows. So unfortunately, there's no new bombshells, as they may say. But there are people that are going to be subpoenaed. We do have reaction from a couple of members of Congress, and I think it warrants our attention. Let's start here.
Bigger than I think anyone anticipated. We are obviously going to be requesting the SARS reports from Treasury, and also too following up on that. There are some very rich and powerful people that need to go to jail. I think everyone's been frustrated as to why that hasn't happened before. But it is very much so a possibility that Jeffrey Epstein was an intelligence asset working for our adversaries. But also, too, I think the questions that we have is how much did our own government know about it? And so there's more to follow, and I'm sure you'll be hearing from the chairman momentarily. But I do applaud the victims from coming forward, because we heard from a woman who was as young as 14 years old when she was victimized multiple times by Jeffrey Epstein. So that's hard to hear.
Will you sign the discharge petition, the massive discharge petition?
I think that the files will probably be released prior. I don't know why Comer hasn't. I think that he should do it, so it wouldn't even have to come to a vote. But I mean, obviously, I've been a huge advocate, even when I was the only one in Congress calling for the release of this file. So I think I'd be happy to, yes.
Yeah, all right. So that was Representative Anna Paul Luna. I also have an update for you from Representative James Comer. And, you know, the bottom line to this, and it's been this for me since the beginning, which is, can we just get justice for the victims? I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what it's going to take. But if we're going to talk about Epstein, if you guys are going to go out here and do all this work, you better hold someone accountable in the end. Get results. That's all I really care about. And I also am not naive to the idea that people who are powerful and elite probably will not be held accountable in this particular situation. I mean, it would truly be shocking if they were. And that's unfortunate for the victims, because you can't imagine the stories that they were sharing with members of Congress because they brought them in. They're actually supposed to hold a press conference tomorrow with Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna to speak out and to continue to demand transparency and demand more files. I don't know what else they can really demand at this point. I mean, I think everybody knows what's going on here. But anyways, here's what James Comer had to say. Take a look.
Just give a quick update. I think everyone knows who all we've subpoenaed thus far. In the initial batch, we subpoenaed 6 former attorneys general, as well as Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton. We've expanded that to Alex Acosta. Acosta's coming in, I believe, September the 19th, 16th or 19th. We've got that date down. I know that we'll have a lot of questions for him with respect to an earlier Epstein prosecution that he was involved in when he was U.S. Attorney. We have the documents, the initial batch that had been sent by the White House. As you know, we also subpoenaed Pam Bondi for those documents. The White House is working with us. I want to publicly thank the White House for turning over so many documents thus far. We're in the process of uploading those documents for full transparency so everyone in America can see those documents. It's going to, as quick as we can get them uploaded, and as the Speaker said, they're 34,000 pages. So we're doing everything we can to get those uploaded. We want those to be public as soon as possible. And then we're going to continue to bring in more people. We learned of some additional names today. We're going to do everything we can to give the American public the transparency they seek, as well as to provide accountability in memory of the victims.
Okay, I think probably if there's anything to take away from this story is that Representative Anna Pauluna publicly stated that according to the documents she's seen, that Jeffrey Epstein is definitely some Mossad agent or was handled by Mossad or was connected to some type of intelligent agency. I mean, you call it whatever you want. Something is fishy there. And again, at the end of the day, I really don't care about that. Again, I care more about justice for victims. If any of you guys actually know my story, you know why that is my focus. But the other thing that's actually troubling about this entire situation is this beef between the president and Thomas Massie. And they did ask him about that. And according to Thomas Massie, he's not backing down. Take a look.
This is jobs, the economy. Those are always the big issues. But you really can't solve any of that if this place is corrupt.
What do you mean if this place is corrupt?
Well, I mean, if they're going to cover up for rich and powerful and politically connected people, which is still what is happening right now here.
Are you worried about the blowback that you're facing from the White House, from the president? He continues to attack you for taking steps like this.
Look, I got 3 billionaires right now running ads against me in Kentucky, and one of them's in Epstein's black book. So I'm not worried about it. I've already poked the hornet's nest here, and you know, once you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. We're going to get these files released.
So now we move to our next story, and this is just this continuous situation in Chicago. Now, more Chicago leaders are coming out in opposition to what the president is trying to do. We're talking about Lori Lightfoot. She held a press conference. The lieutenant governor, she also made some wild statements I'm going to show you. And matter of fact, why don't we start with Lori Lightfoot and what she is saying this is truly all about. Take a look.
If he comes to Chicago, he's going to be in court, and he's going to be sued by the state, he's going to be sued by the city, and I believe that there will be private interests that also sue him. This is not about violent crime, and I don't think we should pretend that this manufactured crisis and his attempt to provoke people in Chicago is legitimate exercise of power. It is not.
Yeah, so as this continues to play out, I think you guys are going to notice that Democrats are like the person that's on a group project. You know, when you were in school and you had to do a group project, they're that one person on the team that wants to question everything. They would spend more time questioning everything instead of just taking action. That's who they are at this point. They want to question the person. They want to question the president's authority. They want to question his strategy. They want to question how is this going to work. They want to question whether or not it will work. And while they're spending all that time questioning, the president has already proven that when you take the National Guard and you have them support the local law enforcement, you can bring crime down in a hurry like he did in D.C. But as I stated, not everybody agrees with me.
Of course nobody likes crime. Of course murders are bad. But this is about something much deeper. How do you do this? Whose role is it to tackle it? And who has autonomy?
So, Michael, what do you make of the mayor?
Can I push back a little bit? I mean, what people, who's saying this? You know, 2 weeks ago, I was on air on Laura Coates' show, and we aired about a 4 or 5 minute package of one of our reporters talking to residents in D.C., for example, who live in some of those very dangerous areas. Mixed race people, young and old, older people saying, you know, at my age, I have to go home before sundown because it is too dangerous. So maybe if you're talking to some milquetoast liberal who lives in Northeast D.C. or Northwest D.C. in a $2 million house,
sure, Michael,
then maybe they're saying,
Virginia,
oh, it's great.
And I live in
maybe
Washington, D.C.
But let me tell you something. There are a lot of people who live in the poor areas who do not see it the way that Lulu just described. And again, I'm not saying, Aaron, that this is a long-term fix. I acknowledge the fact that this is only temporary. You do got to increase funding. You do have to have more policing. But hell, that's pretty hypocritical coming from the other side who demonized the hell out of police for 4 years.
Yeah, so as you guys can see, their attitude is all about why and how and who and what, and it's none of it is based on let's actually solve the problem first, and then we can figure all that out after the fact, right? And it's two schools of thought. Now, usually the people who are Ivy League educated, the people who live in nicer areas, the people who have gone to these universities and are part of the academia and they're part of the mainstream media culture. These people are not actually invested into solutions, okay? They're invested into rhetoric. That's what you're hearing from Lulu. Now, what she's going to try to do is what they all, oh, I'm just a reporter. I'm just telling you what's being reported. Yeah, why don't you actually tell us how you feel instead of beating around the bush? And it doesn't matter because Shermichael makes a phenomenal point.
Shermichael, I am a reporter. I am not the other side. I am simply saying that there was a recent poll that said 80% of the residents of this city do not agree. That's a fact. Now, you can try and cherry pick your, who you want to talk about, but that is just the way that the people feel here. Now, I believe in a democracy, people who live in a city should have a say in what happens there.
I agree, but I'm also a strategist. I've worked on a lot of polls, and I know focus group, size, 80%. Education, ethnicity, all of that stuff matters, Lulu. It's easy to come up with a poll and say, well, this demonstrates what most people believe. You know that as well as I do.
I think at the end of the day, this is not about crime. I understand that the president and you would like to make this about crime. The bigger concern here is what this means, putting troops on the streets of American cities, troops that the governors of those cities don't want, the mayors of those cities don't want, and the people of those cities don't want. What does that say about the United States of America today? The concern, and I've worked in many of these places, is that this turns into some kind of police state where, of course, you have safety, but you lack liberty.
Again, guys, this is why I'm telling you, if you pay attention to the rhetoric, it's we worry this is going to happen. We worry that's going to happen. He's doing this and he's doing that. And what you never hear out of their mouth, what should he do instead? And not only what should he do instead, what have you done to back up your solution, your recommendation, especially if you are an elected leader? You spend all your day criticizing the president, but what have you done to solve the problem? And they say, well, it's not about crime. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you think it's about. It's about what the people who are being positively impacted by this decision from the president, what do they think? How do they feel? And you could spew all the numbers you want, but if people don't feel safe and they see National Guard troops in their neighborhood, especially in the areas of crime, and they start to feel safe, it doesn't matter what you say at the end of the day. That will ring true for them.
They keep telling people you shouldn't perceive yourself to be unsafe, basically. But your feeling of being unsafe is illegitimate. And my question to you, Christian, is do you believe that Mayor Johnson wants the city to be safe? And do you believe that he has the ability to make the city safe?
I think that he honestly wants to keep the violence interruption programs funded. I think that's his top concern, keeping not-for-profits funded as opposed to actually doing the work of stopping the crime. If he stops the crime, what is the need for all of those not-for-profits that are cashing checks and paying salaries in the city
Bingo.
For these programs?
Yeah, Pastor Brooks, as someone who works in the not-for-profit community, you've seen this money get blown year after year after year, hundreds of millions of dollars, flooding Chicago and other cities, St. Louis, Oakland, Baltimore. What do they have to show for it?
Yeah, it's unfortunate that we have organizations that do not properly spend. Just like every profession, there are individuals who don't do the work. Media personalities, politicians, but there are individuals in the non-for-profit sector like Project Hood, Activists, Metropolitan Family Services, who are doing the work on the streets. So what I'm saying is, yes, we do need the National Guard, but we also need some of these organizations that are doing the work. But there's no doubt about it, there are a lot of organizations that are not handling their funds properly.
Now, why don't we settle this debate once and for all? All they should do is do a poll. And the only people that can answer that poll are people who actually live in Chicago. Do you feel Chicago has a crime problem? Yes or no? Now, me and you both know what the answer to that question is. We know majority of people who live in Chicago will say yes, there is a crime problem. And if we ask the second question, do you believe Mayor Brandon Johnson is doing enough to crack down on crime? Majority of people are going to say no. So that's all we need to know at that point, including obviously what happened over the weekend in those numbers. And again, for the life of me, I don't understand why Democrats want to fight against keeping the American people safe. But hey, this is what the governor had to say to the people of Chicago. Take a look.
To Chicagoans, what you can do is look out for your communities and your neighbors. Know your rights. Film things that you see happening in your neighborhoods and your streets and share them with the news media. Authoritarians thrive on your silence. Be loud for America.
It doesn't lead to anything good at the end of the day. It just makes things worse. But what about the people who actually may disagree, but they find a way to work with the president? Now, of course, the DC mayor, I don't think she really had a choice in the matter because it's clear the president had authority. But it doesn't distract from the bottom line that DC has seen some of the best crime numbers in decades. Take a look.
All right, Janine Pirro is the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, joining us now from the White House. Good to see you. I want to start with the president announcing that D.C. is effectively a crime-free zone. Just last night, 70 more arrests, 27 were illegals, 3 more illegal gun seizures, grand total over 1,600 arrests, more than 160 illegal guns taken off the streets. The crime rate has plummeted, the murder rate has plummeted, and somehow you're getting a lot of fury from the other side on this.
It doesn't make sense, does it?
No.
1,669 arrests since the surge started, since President Trump made the decision to make D.C. safe and beautiful, along with 168 guns that have been removed from the street. And that means that those guns can no longer be used to shoot, maim, or murder other individuals. Look, we know then that Washington, D.C. is one of the most violent cities in America. And the president is determined to turn this city around, and he's done so by putting together federal law enforcement partners along with the Metropolitan PD. And every day we are seeing the results of that. And what's really amazing is that last night my staff told me that it was the first night they didn't have a felon in possession. We call them FIPS, because the worst of the criminals are now aware that we're out there, that we're tracking them, that we're going to arrest them. And so if we haven't already charged them, they at least are aware of the deterrent effect of this operation.
And sometimes that's all you really need, okay? It's the appearance, it's the intimidation, okay? But again, politically, this doesn't go well for Democrats. They're not going to support it whatsoever. And I tell you guys all the time, there's a difference between what's politically right for a group and what actually happens in reality. There's a difference between theory and reality. There's a difference between what someone feels should happen versus common sense, okay? And that's what's really playing out here. But you know what? Let me get your guys' comments below to these stories. First, starting with the big one here, that the president authorized a lethal strike on cartel members near Venezuela. Again, I love when he makes decisions like this. I think cartel members should definitely be held accountable at every turn. Whenever we have an opportunity to take them out, we absolutely should do it. Someone's got to do it for once and for all. Let me know if you guys agree with the decision from the president, and also share your thoughts about how CNN is questioning his authority surrounding that move. And then what about the Epstein file release? No bombshell, no shocking update, of course. 32,000 pages of heavily redacted information that leads to zero new conclusions. So I think that's really unfortunate, but hey, we'll see how these subpoenas go, right? And then finally, what is your take on this whole crime situation in Chicago? We've been talking about it every single day, and the message is still the same. The American people deserve to be safe, especially when they're paying taxes. You'd think that's what the mayor would be focused on, but he's not. And unfortunately, the people who are going to get hurt the most are the people of Chicago. Let me know what your thoughts are about everything we discussed in this video in the comments section below. Now, earlier, President Trump made a bold announcement. He is moving SpaceCom from Colorado to Alabama. But that's not the big one. The big one is he's confirmed that National Guard troops have been staged and are ready to go into the city of Chicago. And we also go into depth about what happened over the weekend in Chicago, which is really a tragedy, in my opinion. So if you guys missed out on that video, more stories from earlier today, all you have to do is click on it because it's coming up right now.